Divorcing you was the correct choice. You and your child are still as pathetic as ever. It appeared that my ex-husband was only interested in bragging about himself and didn't bother to inquire about our situation. Besides, I'd like to introduce someone. Hey, come here, this is my new wife, Harriet, Mark announced with a cocky grin as Harriet stepped forward, smiling politely. What was he trying to prove? Oh, are we done here? Well then, goodbye, I said, trying to keep my composure as I turned to leave. But before I could take a step, Mark moved to block my way. Hold on, he said, his tone more insistent. Aren't you going to congratulate us? You can't just walk away like that. I sighed, feeling a mix of frustration and weariness. Mark, there's nothing more to discuss. I need to go. He sneered, his voice dripping with smugness. Are you just jealous because we look happy? Just because you're not well off doesn't mean you have to be so bitter. You'll only make yourself more miserable. Instead of being jealous and angry, I was straight up annoyed by him. Before I could respond, Johnny, who had been watching quietly, spoke up. Mom, can we get rid of this guy? Huh? Mark was taken aback, his arrogance briefly deflated. Johnny, let's go, I said, taking my son's hand firmly. I looked at Mark one last time, feeling a mix of pity and disgust. His attempts to declare control and superiority only highlighted his insecurities. Lisa, wait, Mark called out again, but I continued walking, my determination unwavering. My name is Lisa, and I am 42 years old. I married George, my colleague from the same company, when I was 26. I continued working after we got married, but quit when I became pregnant. Later, our son Johnny was born. Now that Johnny is 7 and has started elementary school, parenting has become a bit more manageable. I thought it might be a good time to start working outside the home again, so I talked to my husband about it. He agreed immediately, almost as if he had been waiting for me to bring it up. He probably thinks my work would help our household budget, but he's been pushing me about it. Have you found any job yet? He asks repeatedly. Not yet. I'm still looking, I reply. Just find something, he insists. He seems too eager for me to work, no matter what. When I mentioned I was looking for a part-time job, he suggested, if you're going to work, why not go full-time? If it's too much, you don't have to work 5 days a week. How about 3 days, 8 hours each? Johnny isn't entirely independent just because he's in elementary school. He comes home early, and I need to be there for him. But my husband keeps insisting. Johnny can join after-school programs. Full-time, 5 days a week would be ideal. He continually recommends that I work long hours. I can't complain since it was my idea to start working again, but I haven't been employed in years, so I'm quite nervous. Ideally, I'd like to ease into it, even if I eventually take on a full-time position. I'd feel bad if I had to quit after starting because it was too overwhelming. So, for now, I've thought of working part-time, around 20 hours a week. My husband grumbled that full-time would be better right away, but he reluctantly agreed when I said I'd consider it if I could handle it. I didn't think he would be so concerned about our finances. While I found his continuous inquiries about my job search somewhat annoying, I also felt a bit reassured. It's better to have a spouse who thinks about financial stability than one who doesn't care at all, especially in a long-term relationship. However, I soon realized that my perception was mistaken. A few months into my part-time job, I received a text on my phone. Curious about who it could be, I checked and saw a familiar name, my former colleague, who also worked with my husband. Thinking it had been a while since we'd last spoken, I casually read the message, but what I read left me stunned. What? This must be a joke, I exclaimed in disbelief. The message read, Long time no see. I saw your husband the other day looking very friendly with some woman. I thought he might be cheating, so I sent you this message. Attached to the message were photos that clearly showed my husband arm in arm with a woman I didn't recognize. Even if it had been someone I knew, such behavior would be entirely inappropriate. As I struggled to process the shock of the images, another message came through. This woman is the division manager's daughter. She's an employee at our company, so she should know that your husband is married. They're so brazen, aren't they? I wonder if all young folks are like this now. I was deeply shaken. The person in the photograph was undeniably my husband, and the situation was worse than I could have imagined. The betrayal felt all the more severe because of the familiarity and the context. My mind raced with questions and emotions as I tried to make sense of what I had just learned. It was clear from my colleague's message that she was relishing the gossip, but I replied with a simple thank you and closed the messaging app. I never thought my husband would cheat on me. Yet, as I reflected on recent events, many things started to make sense. His insistence on me working hard, even when I was still adjusting to our child's school schedule, seemed suspicious. He likely wanted more free time for his affair. Today, he was supposedly on an overnight business trip, but it was probably just an excuse to spend time with his mistress. The next day, as soon as my husband came home, I confronted him. I knew that if we were going to divorce, I should play it cool and gather evidence, but I couldn't pretend everything was normal. "What is this all about?" I demanded, showing him the picture. For a moment, my husband seemed taken aback, but he quickly regained his composure and responded defiantly, "Ah, if you know, then it can't be helped. It's exactly as you see." I was shocked. I had expected some kind of excuse or denial. I had hoped that if he showed regret, I might consider forgiving him, especially for the sake of our son, Johnny. But this? His lack of guilt was staggering. Comparing me to his mistress, implying she was superior, and then casually suggesting divorce as if it were a business decision. Was this truly the man I married? I felt a deep sense of disappointment and betrayal. As I struggled to find words, he grew even more brazen. "Well, that's how it is. I think we should divorce. It's a bit sooner than planned, but I was going to tell you eventually, so this is good timing." His words echoed in my mind, leaving me feeling numb and utterly alone. The divorce brought a mix of emotions. On one hand, I felt a sense of liberation from the toxic relationship, but on the other hand, the reality of being a single parent hit hard. Despite the financial settlement, the burden of raising Johnny on my own loomed large. My ex-husband's selfish parting words echoed in my mind, reminding me of his lack of empathy. It was clear that his priorities lay elsewhere, with his pursuit of wealth and status overshadowing any sense of responsibility towards his child. While I was relieved to be free from such a toxic relationship, the challenges of single parenthood were daunting. With limited savings and the need to provide for Johnny, I had no choice but to return to full-time work. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary for our survival. As I navigated this new chapter of my life, I found strength in the love and support of friends and family. Despite the hardships, I was determined to build a better future for Johnny and myself, one step at a time. The transition to single parenthood and full-time work was undoubtedly challenging, but with time, I found my rhythm. Johnny's growing independence and sense of responsibility eased the burden of household chores, allowing me to focus on my career and personal growth. As the years passed, I realized how much I had adapted and thrived in my new life. Johnny's maturity and willingness to help around the house were a testament to our resilience as a family. With his support, I found moments of freedom and fulfillment that I hadn't experienced before. Looking back, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the decision to end my marriage. Despite the initial hardships, it opened the door to a life filled with opportunity and personal fulfillment. I had reclaimed my independence and found a newfound sense of happiness and contentment that I never could have imagined in my previous relationship. In the end, I realized that sometimes the hardest decisions lead to the greatest rewards. My journey as a single parent had its challenges, but it also brought immense growth and happiness, and for that, I will always be grateful. Running into my ex-husband was quite an unexpected encounter. Despite the passage of time, it seems he hasn't changed much. I planned on ignoring him, but he stood in front of me and started talking. "It's been a long time, isn't it, Lisa? You've aged." His insensitive comment about my appearance was certainly uncalled for. Is this what you say to someone you haven't seen in a while? A person with normal sensitivity would never say that to a woman. I replied annoyedly, "Oh, that reminds me." "Let me introduce you," George remarked, beckoning over a woman browsing clothes in the distance. The woman approached, and I immediately recognized her. I had seen her in a photo before. She was George's new spouse, Harriet. "Meet my wife, Harriet. She's much more stunning than you, isn't she?" He presented his new wife to me. Is this man crazy? This woman stole my husband while we were married. I'm relieved we're no longer together now, but at the time it was shocking, and I did harbor resentment. I have no favorable opinion of her whatsoever. "Oh, is that all? I'm short on time. Goodbye," I stated, feeling extremely displeased. Naturally, I didn't even acknowledge the woman, let alone extend a greeting. "Wait a moment," George interjected, blocking my path once again. "Stop it. Are you envious because we appear happy? You're not just lacking in wealth. Don't let bitterness consume you. It'll only make you more miserable." My ex-husband assumed I was discontented. "Mind your own business. I'm perfectly content, so kindly leave me be. The most unfortunate thing lately is having to converse with you." Even though I asserted my happiness, my ex-husband remained unconvinced and needlessly bragged about my circumstances. Well, happiness is subjective, but financial struggle doesn't breed happiness. Don't strain yourself. It's likely impossible for you to find a new partner given your circumstances. As your ex-husband, I'm concerned about you, you know. As he spoke, my ex-husband's expression contradicted any genuine concern. He was openly mocking me. Glancing at his wife standing beside him, she too wore a smirk, seeming to derive amusement from my situation. "I'll never befriend this woman. She thrives on belittling others." "I told you, you're far superior. Have some faith in yourself," George remarked, seemingly ingratiating himself with his current wife. Well, he did get a promotion thanks to his current wife, so he's likely trying to curry favor whenever he can. He truly is despicable. You truly are the lowest caliber of woman. I can't believe how you managed to marry him. My ex-husband's wife insulted me, despite our recent introduction. I wanted nothing more than to leave the scene before I could walk, but my ex-husband blocked my path, preventing my escape. Let me make it clear, we're still deeply in love, so any chance of getting back together is non-existent. "Don't hold out hope for something," my ex-husband declared, indulging in some wild fantasy. He seemed to believe I was still pining for him, even though it's been 7 years since our divorce. His mind is so consumed by delusions that I couldn't find words to respond. As I struggled to comprehend my ex-husband's absurd delusions, he appeared convinced of his righteousness. Hey, cat got your tongue? Being a sought-after man is tough. What's sought after about the appearance of a middle-aged man? I'm beyond angry. I'm starting to feel nauseated. When I remained silent, my ex-husband attempted to continue speaking, but Johnny intervened. "Mom, can you get rid of this guy?" "Huh?" My ex-husband was taken aback by Johnny's unexpected words. It seemed Johnny was furious, referring to me as "this guy" instead of Dad. "Well, it doesn't matter. But what do you mean? You're in middle school now. Focus on your studies, boy," George retorted, condescendingly addressing Johnny as well. It's unforgivable that he's mocking my son, too. I was on the brink of exploding with rage at my ex-husband when I heard a voice calling out to me. "Hey, what's going on here?" A man approached, inquiring. My ex-husband froze upon seeing the man's face. "Why are you here, boss?" My ex-husband questioned the man before him. "I'm just here shopping with my family. Are you suggesting I shouldn't be here?" "No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way, but I was just wondering why you were talking to my ex-wife." "Oh, that's natural. She's my current wife, after all." "What? Her? No, this is your wife, boss?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. About 3 years ago, I remarried the CEO of the company where my ex-husband and I had worked. The CEO, Steve, had lost his wife years ago, and we became close after my divorce. Our relationship started unexpectedly. I was shopping at a supermarket when Steve approached me. I knew him from my time at the company, but I never thought he would remember an ordinary employee like me. It turns out he did, likely because I worked at the reception desk. "It seems your marriage didn't work out, but I'm sure you'll find someone better soon," he said kindly. "CEO, I'm glad you remember me, but don't worry about me. I'm all right," I replied, trying to put on a brave face. I had been divorced for less than a year at that point, and his words struck a chord. Steve, with his life experience, saw right through me. Divorce takes more than 3 times the effort of marriage. Even if you divorce smoothly, it's tiring. I've never been divorced, but I felt utterly unmotivated when I lost my wife to death. When a man and woman who once loved each other part ways, that's just how it is. So you don't need to put on a brave face. Steve's words softened my heart. I was feeling a whirlpool of emotions like loneliness and emptiness at the time, despite being glad to have separated. He handed me his business card and said, "If talking to someone like me helps, I'll be there. We can go for dinner whenever you like." It took me about 2 years to get the courage to contact him, but when I did, he made time for me despite his busy schedule. We had dinner together, and I found him easy to talk to as he was admirable. As time passed, we became good friends. Then, about a year after we started seeing each other regularly, Steve proposed to me. "You're kidding, Steve. Don't joke around," I laughed, thinking it was the alcohol talking, but he was serious. "At first, I wanted to encourage you after your divorce, but being with you calms me down. I haven't felt this way since I lost my wife. Honestly, I feel like I'm the one being healed now. If you're willing, let's spend the rest of our lives together." "I need some time to think about it," I said, needing to consult with my son, Johnny. Johnny wasn't opposed, and I also realized that I did have feelings for Steve, so I decided to get married to him. We both felt at peace in each other's company, and I admired how much he had loved his previous wife. I even felt a bit jealous of her for having been loved so deeply. After we married, Steve doted on Johnny as if he were his own son. They got along so well. It was as if they were real father and son. I truly am happy now, just as I told my ex-husband. When my ex-husband heard that I am married to the CEO, his face turned pale, and he became still. He never expected the husband of his poor ex-wife to be the CEO of his company. "Dad, this man was making fun of Mom. Fire him," Johnny said to Steve without mercy. "Idiot! No, Johnny! What are you talking about? We were just talking." George tried to smooth things over, but it was clear to Steve. "You tend to look down on people in the company. Johnny is probably telling the truth. I've heard some bad rumors about you from your subordinates. Be prepared because I'll investigate this matter." I never anticipated Steve would take Johnny's words seriously and probe into George's transgressions within the company. George pleaded with Steve, begging him to delay the inquiry, revealing how much he wished to evade it. But Steve remained unwavering. "No, I intend to proceed. Moreover, your close associate, the executive, also has a questionable reputation. I'll be conducting a comprehensive investigation into both of your activities." Upon hearing this, George's wife, Harriet, also apologized. "No, it's fine if it's just him, but my father has nothing to do with it. If you want to fire, please focus solely on him." George immediately started disputing with his wife. "What do you mean? Are you planning to desert me? Don't joke around. There are numerous men like you. Naturally, my father is more important." It was a dramatic display, and we wanted no part of it. Ignoring the quarreling ex-couple, we departed from the store. Those self-centered individuals will likely face attention now, but it's of their own making. Steve assembled a team to thoroughly investigate George and the executive the following day. The findings were staggering. Mistreatment of subordinates, numerous verbal abuses, favoritism, and fighting with clients. It was an immense amount of misconduct spanning several years. Both George and the executive were demoted and reassigned to a branch office in Nebraska. They foresaw this outcome, which is why they expressed remorse in the shopping mall. Knowing they were culpable yet continuing their misconduct made it even more reprehensible. They eventually resigned from the company, lawsuits ensued, and with good evidence against them, they lost in court. They were ordered to pay compensation and found themselves in significant debt. George's wife held him accountable for their financial downfall, and their marriage deteriorated rapidly. They divorced soon after, engaging in daily arguments with George, venting his frustrations at her. She even contemplated legal action against him for damages, escalating their situation into a legal quagmire. Observing George's downfall reinforced my belief in the importance of living honestly and authentically in this world. Steve and I welcomed a child together. Despite being 42 and experiencing a belated childbirth, our baby was born healthy. Johnny is thrilled to become a big brother and eagerly assists with the baby's care, even assisting with feedings daily. Steve hopes that Johnny will grow up to contribute to the company's success. Despite the inevitability of time passing, any trepidations dissipate when I gaze upon our baby's serene, sleeping face. Thank you for entering our lives. Mom determined to give it her all. I silently pledge as I embrace the day, filled with gratitude for the happiness and